with our meeting. I'm not sure what time the 7:30 meeting started. We are just a little late. We've just been waiting for you for them, so we're going to go ahead and start with the agenda. And hopefully between now and the time we get to voting, we'll have a full board here in order to do that.
It's been a good experience. I've been
First of all, we appreciate everybody being here. And now we have approval of the consent agenda. The governing board minutes from August 27th, 2015, and August, September, and October financial reports. Is there any questions in regards to the consent agenda? If not, we have a motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a first and a second. Any questions on the motion at all? No, we can't vote, can we? Shoot. Okay. We'll just go on back. Yeah, that's the vote item. I need it better than that. Okay, we'll get back to that one there. All right. We'll go on now, and just a little bit of housekeeping here. The next meeting that we have will be March 24th for the Utah Lake Commission. March 24th, and at that time we will need to select a new commission leadership positions for that governing board meeting. And so be thinking of nominations, if you will, for that meeting. Report now from
That does show the 15th, 2015.
Oh, I'll change that.
I thought you.
I'm thinking this is almost an email out of who's currently serving and maybe how long they've served.
Okay,
Would prompt us to be a little thoughtful about some nominations.
sure.
I've been serving as chairman on this one here. Mayor Hatfield from American Fork has been serving as vice chair. So we'll have that, we'll have an email form so you guys want us to consider it.
If our ILA does call for 2-year terms, if that's correct, with succession from vice chair to chair. So you're
So
talking
how many positions
entire
was that?
elections for the vice chair is 4 years.
Did the vice chair move up?
I think our
I don't
ILA,
think vice chair moves up, does it?
I'll review the thing. I don't think that it said that they move up. It just said that there will be a change in leadership.
I think it'd be great to get an email with who's in, how long they've been in, whose terms are expiring, how many terms are open,
Okay.
all those things.
Yep.
Good idea. Thank you, Mayor Curtis. Okay, let's have a presentation of our technical committee. Eric, let's have you talk about the technical committee representative list and talk please about that. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, so real quick, the water quality monitoring it's a big project that has been started by Division of Water Quality, has started now. And as we've attended the technical committee meetings, I made a note of all of the cities that have had representation at those technical committee meetings and some of the cities that haven't. And it would be really helpful if we had representation from each of the cities. So we have the ones that we could use some more representation, and specifically somebody that's water related, so that we could have data coming in and kind of communication between the committee and Division of Water Quality, would be American Fork City, Lehigh, and I'll send this out in an email as well as a follow-up to this. Springville, Woodland Hills, Payson, Spanish Fork, Alpine, Highland, and Salem. All of the other cities have a regular attendee to that meeting. But those cities in particular could use, we could really benefit from having some representation from them to give input and provide data from at the city level.
Eric, tell me, the ones you read off, are we got people coming or not coming?
Currently not coming regularly. At least we looked at the last few months of meetings and didn't have someone attending from those cities.
Got it, okay. Given now presentation, let's have Eric go over some conclusions.
Oh yeah, so we'll turn to the presentation up on the board. We should put the double tables at this end next time, so everybody's looking forward. So over the last few months, we've had the opportunity to get out and look around a little bit at some various sites to give us ideas for marina projects and so forth. And so I took some pictures and thought I'd kind of walk through those. So we went down to Arizona. They have a couple beach parks and nature centers. So we took a look at those to get some ideas. And so here we have a boat rental idea where people right there on the water have the option to rent paddle boats, kayaks, the little stand-up paddle boards and so forth. And then to the right there is the kind of the addition of that park, just connecting people in. They had a splash pad, much like what we're seeing in the plans for the Provo, the Utah Lake State Park expansion. And they've seen phenomenal success. There's a lot of people down there on a regular basis, and they use it as a venue, but it really changed the atmosphere down there so that it was a usable facility. We also went up to a couple of their lakes that they had. I think that as we develop things like these docks on the right where they're usable and kind of improve the atmosphere down there, we can get really cool little shops like this one to the left that add character to our parks, bring people down, get them spending money where they have the option to load up on snacks or what have you before they get out on the lake. I think that we'll be able to draw in really good vendors if we can make these improvements happen. Sorry about my cold. Again, improved areas near the marina. This is a parking structure down the side of the lake where there's some boat ramps. They've got trees and such to keep people in the shade. And again, this is what we're seeing in our applications for marina improvements at American Fork and Saratoga Springs. So we look forward to those improvements so that we can get things like this restaurant or what have you, venues down at the lake that actually get people down there enjoying the lake. Looked at some other areas. These are some beach parks in Idaho. Just really, you can see the impact that a sandy beach would have. All three of our marina improvement proposals have sand involved or beaches involved in those to get people a place to hang out on the beach. Once they're there, this little building to the left is a little rental shack that has volleyballs and treats and things like that. I think, again, we'll be able to draw these vendors in, good vendors, once we make these improvements. So we're excited about those. Another area, just a swimming area. I know that the Utah Lake State Park and at least one of the other marina improvements have swimming areas included in their expansion plans. I brought my kids down there on the right. They loved it, so kid approved. Another thing that we got to take a look at when we were down in Arizona is the projects that led up to getting some of the expansions done. So this was a trail project and a whole reserve that they did down the Salt River. What do they call it? It's generally dry, but they were able to develop that so that they have lakes in it, streams, and then areas that are dry but redone with all of the vegetation to make them a nice place to visit. And what I really liked was how they put together these plans so that you can visualize what it's going to look like after. And so we're going to work over the next year with some of our universities to get some of these done for the trail system that goes along the shoreline of the lake, so that cities and others that already have plans can kind of incorporate those in, and we can see how it'll all fit together. The Utah Lake Nature Center has been kicked around as an idea for a long time. That a lot of work went into it through READ. So we took a look at some nature centers and got really excited about how effective and exciting that they are for local residents. Schools and school children flock to these. It's a great opportunity for them to learn. So I took a number of different pictures of the centers that we took a look at, both down in Arizona and again up in Idaho. I'll just go through a couple of these. It's an education opportunity. It provides opportunity for research through the universities. One thing that I thought was interesting is that the outdoor element to these nature centers is a big deal. They developed the grounds. This one up in Idaho, the MK Nature Center, they built a 500-foot long stream that has salmon and trout that spawn in it. They've got even larger fish down in the main pond. And to the right there, you see they kind of build up a little wall that allows people walking past down on the trail below to look in and see these fish coming past the windows. Just an awesome experience. The first time you see it, it's wows everybody that sees them, and very educational because it's something that most people don't get an opportunity to kind of experience up close. There's also an indoor element to it. They have a little pack that these two boards here on the left where they can stamp footprints of various different animals into the sand, see what they look like, so that when they go away, they can walking in the woods or on the mountains, they'll be able to recognize various different animal tracks. I think it's just something that Utah Valley students would really benefit from. Just a couple pictures from our fall field trip out in Saratoga Springs. We had huge attendance. 1,200. There were applications for 1,200 students. We had room for 300, and this was just spur of the moment. Teachers barely had time to comply with teaching some of the lessons and get their applications in, and even then, with those small constraints, we had a phenomenal response to the opening for these slots to bring students out to the lake, and they had a really good time. Yeah, I'll conclude with that.
Some of those pictures brought back memories. If you go back to the first two,
Yep.
that's the in Tempe, right? This
Yes.
Park.
Yep.
And that's the Mill Street Bridge.
Yep. Have you been down there before?
I lived there. I remember when that lake was dry, when that river was dry, like you mentioned, they found most of it was dry, so they found some effort to get water there and keep.
Yeah, and this is all waste or stormwater that has filled this up, and they just retain it with some big coffer dams. It's pretty impressive.
That's a nice pair of pictures, Eric. That's a great look forward to.
Agreed.
That's a pretty awesome deal. Hey, let's go back on our agenda for today, and we'll go to the approval of the consent agenda, and then we have board minutes from August 27, 2015, and August 10th over financial reports. Is there any questions in regards to these here items? If not, we have a motion now.
Motion stands.
Okay, we have a motion on the table from Mayor Curtis, and a second by Commissioner Albertson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, we'll go back to item number 5 now, and that is, we have a public hearing, we'll open a public hearing on the approved fiscal year 16 budget amendment for Utah Lake Commission, capital fund account expenditures of up to $20,000, which will pay for to complete a site analysis and site plan for the Utah Lake Natural Resource Center. Eric, do you want to explain that just a little bit?
Yeah. Yes, so what we're looking at is putting an RFP out that would hire a consulting firm that could look at 4 or 5 different sites along the side of the lake that would make a good location for this nature center. Once they make a recommendation on which site they would choose, then they would go to the next step, which is to do a site plan. It would show what the footprint of the center itself would look like and the grounds, and it would give us an idea of what the cost on that would be, so that we can move forward with fundraising and finding partners and knowing what kind of commitments we need to make that a reality.
Sounds good. Is there any questions in regards to this here? If not, let's wrap up the recommendation. We have a motion.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I haven't been here for a while, so,
Hi.
hi. Can you just explain this funding? Where is the funding going to come from? And this is the first I've heard about a nature center, so it's beyond our-
For sure. So the Utah Lake Commission has historically every year put aside a certain amount, 20,000 or so, into a capital fund project or capital project fund. So that has been building over the years. So right now there's 208,000 in that, 208,397, and so it would be coming from that. A small portion we'll go into later with our with the grant dollars that were appropriated through the state. A matching portion would be was recommended through the subcommittee, but that would be 3,000 something of that contract. And then the Nature Center went through conceptual design with the previous director, and they worked on that for you would know better than I. How much time went into the concept for the Nature Center?
We worked with the National Park Service, and there was a fair amount of time that went into it. I couldn't give you an exact number of hours.
So they went through and produced a conceptual plan, so it's a 30-page document that...
So funding for this would come from matching grants, federal grants, is that?
Matching grants, local contributions. We will pursue funding through the universities that would be using it as a research facility through DWR, who would also be using it as an extension to their Central Utah office. Possibly some of the federal partners like the Mitigation Commission would also benefit from having a location right on the lake that could act as a research point for them.
During the conceptual design process, we probably had 20 people on board who were excited to and supported the idea. But how much they were willing to contribute was never determined. But from the federal government all the way to state, local school districts, universities, all were expressed a desire to participate in the eventual construction of it.
And ongoing maintenance, was that ever discussed in those conceptual? Because again, getting something up and running, yes, that's a huge capital outlay, but it costs money to sustain it. So was that discussed in those?
The venue upstairs, it would.
They knew that was an obstacle, but no, we were looking at it from a 50,000 foot view, and just wanted to get the process moving. And I think that the commitment's there and it was heartfelt.
Was it, do you recall, who would actually be responsible, who would own it? Who's going to be?
We envisioned
That
that
is
the
determined, or
commission,
that's still yet to be determined?
that's to be determined, but we figured that the commission would be housed there. But with their small staff, there would have to be some other investment in that.
So I look at, we had a discussion, a year ago, Bree, you'll remember this, when our rent downstairs was raised. And it was a significant portion, as we wondered how much that would impact this board's ability to continue to perform at the level that we were performing at. And that was the change of a few $100s a month. And so the capital outlay of this, we're talking millions of dollars. And then ongoing maintenance for housing, for everything that this would entail is a significant change to our operating structure. We haven't ever done anything like this. We increased from when I came on 4 years ago, we had 2 FTEs, decreased down to 1.5, and now we're up to 2.5. And so I think that we need to be cognizant of the trajectory that this implies.
And I understand those concerns, and it is something that's identified in the master plan, and I think Eric's trying to just take the next step to see to see where it should be. And once we get more concrete information about where it's going to be and what it's going to look like, then there's going to be more excitement for the facility will be generated and more support to fund that ongoing maintenance. And I think that it's a logical step to take and worth the investment to do so.
Was there a consensus during this original conceptual work with National Park Services to what the primary purpose of this facility would be?
It was dual. It was to be a nature center for a destination point for school children and tourists to come to learn about the region. And the other was to serve as a research facility for researchers who wanted to have a place to stage as they conducted research on the lake. If you look at the master plan, the research portion of it is actually what's identified, and we've kind of morphed that into a broader scope, realizing that there would likely be more demand for a destination point per se.
Can you tell me what order in the list of priorities this is within the master plan?
It was, I can't remember if it's high or medium. You remember, Eric says it was in the high. We
So
had
more
two-
important than the beach or the marinas or the, all those other nice
Probably
things?
similar.
And those are also, if anything's happening quickly, it's that side. So we've got 3 marinas that have got their designs already on paper, funding through the state program that was a huge help for that. And so those are the bulk 495,000 of the 500 are going to beach improvements. So it's certainly the priority, but this is also long range. This is a huge priority for the area.
So I'll voice one more concern, and then I'll let anyone else speak, and I'll hold my tongue. But if we look at, the master plan was adopted how many years ago?
2009.
6 years ago. So the master plan was adopted 6 years ago. We're dealing with an entirely, well, not entirely, but a majority different governing board.
Okay.
Visions change, the state legislature turns over, that's kind of the nature of who we are. And so if we're looking at spending $20,000 to identify a spot, what else is going to change in the next 5 years, 6 years before we get to the construction phase? So if this is something that we're choosing to do as a governing board, and this is the trajectory that we're taking, who knows if it's ever going to come to fruition? So is it then within our purview, within wise decisions to spend the money, knowing that we could or could not construct anytime soon, and that we are completely contingent if there were imminent funding available, if we had a commitment from the state or a commitment from the federal government or grants on board or whatever else, then I'd be more inclined to discuss it. But right now it seems like, hey, we want to spend this money to eventually plan to do something. And so that's my 2 cents.
Part of the challenge is that at some point in time, you gotta begin to move something forward, otherwise nothing will ever happen.
So my experience has been that whether it's the city council or the different boards we serve on, the elected officials come and go. And the whole purpose for a visioning master document is to keep focus while we're coming and going. And I also have seen numerous projects that are amazing projects, that are extremely beneficial for our community. Start with seeds decades ago, where people started planting these small seeds, not knowing how they were going to fund it, not knowing how they were going to maintain it. But if they didn't plant those seeds and start the dialogue, then those questions never got an answer. So I think the more relevant question is this body uncomfortable with the master plan? And if they are, we need to be having some serious discussions about a relook at the plan, and that may be the case. But until we do that, and until we ask the question, this is Eric's marching orders. And we either need to give him new orders or support him in carrying out those orders, or otherwise it's going to be extremely frustrated. What does he do? And we'll have some new elected officials next January. And they'll have different opinions than we have. So he's got to have something that charts its course.
Mayor, I think that's the reason we have that plan. Because if we don't have something, we have nothing to guide us and ride in that, are we apt to just spend 20,000 just to keep Eric busy, is that what you, and it's not, that's not the issue. The issue is we're trying to make an improvement this way, and it's gonna take a lot of this planning up front, so the next generation can carry it out. I see that in my town, in India, is that, you know, we're planning 30, 40 years down the road, and you have some money that sometimes is a little questionable.
And when you get 30 years down the road, the elected officials may see the decisions are gone, and no one's gonna come in, but we've got to lean on to something that's consistent through that period of time.
Well, it's the ability to look out there a ways and purchase the easements and purchase the things in advance that saves the money when the ground value goes up to the point where you have to pay more for the property. It's those leaders that are able to do that will bring this into the future.
Hey, Commissioner.
No, that's fine. In terms of this, do we see this, and I'm assuming this is still up in the air possibility, as being totally independent of or potentially part of the state park? Is that part of what we're being looked at here, is to not only where, but how, and who may be involved in it?
It would look at that. So the state park is still one of the options. And then they would look at, I think we're asking for 3 others on the RFP. That's what we're thinking of.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment also, and that is, in my candidly, I think we've all done the same thing when it comes to master plans. We're following up on master plans right now that's been done 2 and 3 administrations ago. And, yeah, we've had some maybe changes to some of those master plans a little, but the basic idea was there and the concept has gone forward. And I'm personally of the belief that if we don't start something, we'll never get anything done. And so, based on that comment right now, is there any other comments that would like to come forth at this time? No, I'm going to call for a motion to.
Just one concluding comment, and I
Okay.
apologize for taking up so much time, but I think it's important to note that we do have agencies in place who already have facilities. You know, state parks was mentioned, fire and state lands. These people are used to maintaining, they're used to operating, they're used to, you know, going to the state and finding that funding and everything. This board is not really used to that. You know, we're essentially saying, hey, we're going to allocate $20,000 so that we can in the future designate this board to make the decisions, of course, but Eric to go forward and have this capital project. And you look at all of the different agencies that this board represents, how many individuals within our organizations are responsible for getting something like this up and running, and then for keeping it up and running? Is it the Utah Lake Commission that we want supporting a nature center? Or do we act as a resource to forestry fire and state parks to get something like this? So I think that while this is just one piece, and we can always shift gears in the future and say, okay, well, we've done a plan, we'll pass it along to someone, and that agency can do it. But I don't necessarily think that because this board consists of, yes, state agencies, but it's the majority of Utah County elected officials. Do Utah County elected officials want to run a nature center?
I don't think that's the decision we're making today.
It is, and not just fast forwarding.
I think what I heard was that that's all yet to be determined as to who it would land with.
Correct. So this is to figure out where it would go, what it would look like, and kind of stage costs and stuff like that so that we could pursue those relationships and figure out how that would look.
So if I roll out that idea, if the Utah Lake Commission then conducts this, and Brian, you've dealt with things, so I'll put you on the spot, feel free to bow out and say no. But if we were to conduct a site analysis and pass our findings along to a state agency, would you take it at face value, or would you have to do your own work and kind of reinvent the wheel?
While you're thinking about your answer, Brian, while you're thinking about your answer, let me add one little bit of insight. Keep in mind that this master plan is the state's plan. I mean, this has been adopted by the state as the plan for Utah Lake, is my understanding.
It has been.
Is there not a difference between the master plan of the commission and the management plan for the lake? what's titled the master plan, that's not our management plan.
It's one and the same. They were both adopted together,
Okay,
and your management plan is
all right.
referred, it's called from Utah.
And they're,
When we're state master plan, we're meeting.
It's your management plan, and if it's to be amended, there's a process that we go through before we file state lands to amend it, and the commission would want to do the same thing. It's expressed in the plan that they want to make be the same as much as possible.
So, okay, wait, clarification, this is a public hearing, are we
Yes.
looking for a vote, or is it simply?
No, we want to ratify, the only thing we want to do is ratify the.
We need to change the budget because we didn't, in the original budget, we didn't plan for the expenditure of that.
See here.
Yes, we're going to go to see who passed up the. Okay, any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
I'm actually in favor of this next step. I agree that we've got to continue to look at these options, and I don't think this will determine anything. It's information that's brought back to the board for our next decisions, but we already identified, it was mentioned that there are 4 or 5 sites that the contractor will look at. Have those been identified?
All but probably one. And we wanted to leave some room for that consultant to say, we think that this would be a good spot. You haven't necessarily identified it yet. But they'll go through a variety of metrics to determine transportation, access, availability of the land. So if it's state land, it would be more available, easier transaction and so forth. So they'll identify those.
So my question again is, has staff already identified the 4 or 5 sites that you will suggest to the contractor to look at? Or are we giving them?
We're giving them 3 of 4.
Okay,
And they can, and we're expecting them to identify a 4th site that we haven't necessarily thought of that would be good for those same reasons.
and have those 3 sites that are being recommended, have they been vetted with this board? Or I don't know where they are.
They have not. They've been suggested in the past. So one of them was the state park. Another is right over by the Powell Slough. And then there's one in between the two that would also act as a good spot that's kind of just off Lakeshore. And then the 4th one is the one that we would like to get an idea from the consultant who's familiar with the area.
Were these called out in the concept plan of the National Park Service system?
The one was brought forth from the Utah Lake State Park during their consulting period. And then the others have just been discussed over time.
Just when you're familiar with the lake, you can just tell that that would be a good spot. So I've passed those along.
but if I'm understanding the process, you in essence are, by leaving even one spot, giving the consultant a free rein to look at the entire lake to say, where would that other spot potentially be?
Correct. Because I don't want to miss an ideal spot that I haven't thought of.
I would turn
And
at
they
least
could
one.
identify multiple spots.
What's that?
in looking at
Now,
that.
if he comes up with 3 or 4 spots, I don't know if that's an issue.
Yeah, I would turn at least one spot, require them to come up with at least one, not
Okay.
limit them to
Excellent.
Okay, I'm going to call for this. The public hearing's been open, so is there any comment from the public? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, then we'll call for a motion on this here to ratify the recommendation from the governing board subdivision to the league of Utah.
So that's the excuse me. That part is a part 2. The first part is to amend the budget for the $20,000 in the capital project fund. The second part is when you look on the next page, we have this spreadsheet, which is the approving the use of the legislature's appropriation to the commission. So we'll need 2 motions. Yes. So the first motion would be to approve the expenditure for this site analysis, the $20,000, coming from our cap up to that amount. The second motion that we'll need is to approve the expenditure or the granting of the dollars that we will then give to Forestry, Fire, and State Lands for final approval.
Just a question on addition. So on the last item that we were discussing, the dollar rate was $20,000. However, the grant's recommendation, it only sums to $15,000.
That was the original amount, and that's what we applied for. But when kind of in further discussions, we've figured out that it will probably be a little bit more, so we're asking for up to a little bit more on our request, but that won't change what we're asking for in the grant.
And you are asking us to trim $18,000 off of the,
Which is what we see in the green column on the far right. That's already trimmed so that it drops it so that everybody gets the most for what they applied for.
Okay. Let's call for a motion on $20,000 transfer.
Okay, so what is the motion we need just
To approve the,
allow $20,000 to be used for the study?
correct.
Yes. Okay, so who's got the motion then? Larry? Larry got the motion? I'll second. Okay, we've got a second down here, and that's Kim. Okay, we got a first and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Aye. Okay, the second part of that there is going to be, explain that again, Eric, the second part.
Okay, so the second part is, if you look to this page on your document, we had a subgroup that reviewed the proposals that came in to use the state appropriation of $500,000 that came in last year in the 2015 legislative session. We had 5 applicants. 4 of those were approved. One of them got kicked out because timing wasn't right. And with those 4 applications, we were just a little bit over the $500,000. So we trimmed off 3.47% off each of those applications, and that brought it down to the column in the right. So it gives them 97% of what they were asking for as a grant, so they can move ahead with those. It's based on reimbursement, so we'll pass this on to Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, and they'll be the final ones to approve and then reimburse when these projects are completed and reimbursement is needed.
Okay, do we need any more explanation on the motion on that? Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
could I have on the record that I do support the overall, but I just don't want to support the features.
Sure. Okay,
Wait, is that a yes or no?
That's a yes, but.
that's a yes with that note of withholding on the nature center.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to, if there's anybody that would like to volunteer to be on this RFP process, if you would get your name in there, Eric, or if you want to bring it up right now, that'd be
Can we
great.
volunteer somebody else?
You certainly can.
Pardon me?
We can put anybody on this, it doesn't have to be the governing board, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at Greg, I want to volunteer Greg, I want to make sure you're okay with that.
You betcha.
Does it be in the meat technical committee or governing board?
It can. This is just to be helpful so that we make sure that we've got the right information on the RFP, and that as we pursue that, we have a good group that can. Okay.
And my nomination is Richard Nelson.
Okay.
I'll second.
I think you got Eric.
I mean, Eric, how many do you want? Yeah. You want a specific number?
As many as wanted to participate here, and then we'll also pull a few from the technical committee.
We just did.
Well, we'll pull a couple others if we just have 3, because there's a number of people that would like to be part of
That's
that.
why people aren't showing up to get put on committees when they're not here, you know what I mean?
You could introduce somebody from my staff as well.
Somebody from Forestry Fire.
Somebody
Okay.
from my staff.
Okay, somebody from Forestry.
We're happy to help as well.
Okay. You tell Warren.
Hillary.
Okay.
We have a couple people that, this is their first time here, but
You know what, let them, we didn't do that, who's here for the first time here? You've been here before, though, right?
I think I have.
Okay.
So the joint meeting was.
Introduce yourself. Just so
My
we
name's
know.
Erica Gaddis. I took over for John Whitehead as assistant director of Mark Ballroom.
Okay.
So I'm here on behalf of all. Another meeting all day.
Glad to have you here.
And I see Erica as a huge asset to the commission. I work with her on the Jordan River Commission, and she's phenomenal.
Okay. You have a few names in there?
Yes, I do. Thank you for that.
Okay. All right, let's go to item number 6, and that would be the March governing board meeting. We will present a proposed budget along with the realignment of contributions as a result of additional municipal members. Generally, these alignments will be noticeable to the 3 major partners, and that'll be DNR, Central Utah Water, and Utah County. If these numbers are needed prior to the March meeting, please request it from Eric. Okay, there's nothing to really vote on that right there. There's just
No, it's just last year, we realized that after we added a few cities, there was going to be some changes needed to bring the other partners up that have a 35 split or a 30 split or what have you, the percentage split. And we just, it was a little bit late last year to make those changes, and so we held off, kept everybody status quo. This year, we'll send out the corrections to that formula so that everybody's paying what the original splits were intended to be.
all right. Let's get a director's report then. Go right into your director's report.
Okay, so the lake level, it appears to have stabilized. They're not. There's no outflow in the Jordan River right now.
Stabilized because it's nothing there.
Right, the puddle hasn't evaporated. We're at right around 6 feet below compromise, so very, very shallow.
We dropped.
So what does that really make us? Does that put us around 3 feet?
3 to 4 feet on average in the lake right now.
Oh, pointing out on the website, this might be for someone else, but on the website.
The link's down.
Are interesting facts, and it says, average depth of the lake is 9 feet, at the deepest it's 14, but we have 63-foot deep areas over in Saratoga Springs where springs come into the lake. So,
I heard the real scary holes that are muddy, and
yeah.
but I think the lake bed on average is really just that is that shallow. There's some deep spring holes that come up through, but I think generally they don't include those.
Politicians from Saratoga.
So will I disappear next month? Oh, wait.
You will be gone. All right.
And so the expectation is that this time of year it typically levels off and then starts to go back up over the winter. So we're hoping with weather and cooperation we can get that thing filled again.
So like you correctly, you're saying right now the average depth is 3?
3 to 4 feet. So be out there on a stand-up paddleboard and few other things.
We're going to get to a tall man's elbows this year, and it's going to fill her up.
That's what we hope.
Firemen actually pull the, they
Walk it in.
walked in over in Saratoga Springs.
Yeah. So very low right now. The Sandy Beach improvements, I don't know if Brian have you heard anything on the acquisition of that property at Sandy Beach?
Well, I can kind of give the big picture because there's the funding component of it as well. So part of what's held us up, I think the county as well, from proceeding on doing the things we would like to do at Sandy Beach to better manage down there. TNC, the Nature Conservancy, has a piece of property that's adjoining. Laura particularly has been having conversations with them for a long time about them conveying that property to the state. And that is folks are really in place. Our end, the county folks really know what they want to do. The money will be available to start. Also, I understand that the county has already started to do so the way the profits come from TNC.
One of the things to keep in mind in this is that the beach is the end result, that we presently are receiving concerns from county residents about the use of that area. And the impact, the negative impacts that it's having on their life. People who particularly live in that area, and the roadway that leads into it all. So this is all part of it. And they welcome the idea of making this more formal rather than just being a so we're viewing it in that light as well. And that is moving forward with people accepting and wanting something to happen there. So very favorably.
So that's super exciting. That's the biggest sandy beach that's generally there on the side of the lake, and so to have that turned into a family-friendly beach that is cleaned up and has some facilities down there is pretty exciting. We'll be able to use that and have a major community impact from that.
Eric, some of the things that have been talked about, maybe wondering, parking lot, hardened restaurant facilities, real restaurants down there. Certainly, the things that are necessary for trash and garbage, better access points, clarifying the access points, closing some of the access points that should not be there. Like you say, it's going to lead to a much better experience.
Yep.
And it will, I think it should also lead to eliminating the illegal activity that goes on down there. That
Yeah.
we struggle with and that the sheriff's department struggle with.
And it'll encourage cleaning up the area entirely. There's talk of, through Laura, of getting rid of a lot of the invasive species down there, and that'll open it up so that it isn't as an attractive location for questionable behavior and so forth. So
really, this can be a blessing and a curse to the people that are living around there right now.
They view it very positively.
Though they view it very positively.
To see it change.
Okay, good.
Not the illegal activity.
yeah, that should go away because it'll no longer be they'll feel like they're under the spotlight if they're doing things down there after this is done. Okay, so the next.
I would just add that if some of you have not been down there, some of the pictures that Eric showed in terms of having this nice white sandy beach, this is all natural.
Mhm.
It's there already. We're not having to haul it in.
It's beautiful down there. Not many people are even aware of it. You get down there and it's just it reminds you of being on the East Coast with the little white pickets that aren't quite there yet, but we don't expect them. But other than that, it reminds me of those beach looks. So thank you for the comments on that, Brian. The next big project is the dredging of the state park. We've been meeting regularly on that, and it's moving ahead well. We just got the soils report back, and that was handed to Greg to determine if Provo will be able to take the soil from the harbor. If that ends up being the case, that'll reduce the cost and it'll allow them to do even more than they thought, clearing out. And the expectation right now is that they're going to do a dry dredging where they put a cofferdam at the mouth of the harbor, pump the water out, and then it allows them to get in there with just heavy-duty machinery, flatten it out beautifully, level, get rid of all of the objects that are kind of strewn throughout the harbor that sometimes cause problems for boats. Get underneath the docks where the slips are, so that those docks are no longer sitting up out of the water at lower water levels. It should work really well. Right now they're expecting to go to contract sometime January or February, and if they can stay on the time frame that they're expecting, JUB engineering is the one working on it. They think that they can have it ready and completed by Memorial Day next year. So that's
everything by Memorial Day.
dredged and everything.
Just a question, and this is probably for Erica. Do we know, have there been any studies or measurements or anything as to what
temporary quality problem when you dredge. It depends what kind of dredging you're doing, if you're using what kind of dredging you're doing.
So the dry version, it should be very little, because instead of when they do the sucking version, it's
Yeah.
mixing up the water. This
I
one,
just wonder if we're going to go after additional funding, because this is state funded, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. So it may be good to document that for this time, so that next time when we go and we say, hey, we'd like to propose, this, these are all the ramifications.
Oh, yeah.
These are all the benefits to doing it this other way. It would be nice to just have that documented.
I'll ask for it as kind of a completion report if they'll give me one, so that we have that.
Sounds like
Eric, I would love to have a field trip out there. I don't know if we'll get full the same way. It would be nice to get the company out there to the commission and
Okay.
see that.
I think that'd be a good idea.
As it's happening,
Yeah.
for sure,
In the thick of it.
for sure.
and before they look at it.
Provo City will buy us all dinner.
I think it would be really cool, I don't think here, but I think it would be really cool for the commission to see it once it's all in process also, but when it's still dammed, when it's all
Yep.
cleaned up before they let the water back in, so that they know there's water be at the bottom of that marine area.
I'll send you a picture of it.
Oh, I would love it, thank you. I'll hold you to that.
Okay, and then the last couple things, carp removal. Carp removal is going really well. This has been a fantastic end of the year, or end of the fiscal year anyway. We're at over 20 million pounds removed now. They hit that mark a month and a half ago or so. So
Greater than how much?
20 million pounds removed.
We need 30.
We need 30. So that's moving ahead well. When I talk with Aaron about that, or not Aaron, sorry, Mike Mills, he thinks that 2 years, maximum 3, and they'll switch to maintenance mode and reduce the need for major contracts. Phragmites is also moving very well. This year was one of their best years for treatments. We were also able to target some of the key locations where the general public has been aware of it, up in the Saratoga Springs area. We finished getting the north end of the lake sprayed from Inlet Park all the way over to the end of Scott McLaughlin's property. And right now we're going through fire planning with the county and Saratoga Springs and Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. And that's moving ahead well. We have permission slips for most of the owners, the final ones coming in, and they're working on a fire plan right now to make that happen. So
Explain that a little bit. Is that we're just going to torch it off? Is
that one in particular site is one that we need to burn because of they don't want to crush it, because if they do, all of the biomass can float into the big pumps there and ruin them. And so this is one of the few locations where they'll burn to make sure that it's gone, and they'll retreat it in the spring, and then they'll retreat it again in the fall next year with spray after they've burned it. So hopefully we won't get regrowth like we normally do after a fire.
One of the advantages that we had this go around was we had a fire plan already already filed, so we just pull that again. So
Yeah.
when we got permission, everything could just roll right along rather than starting at that plan and phase all over again.
And so it'll be happening. The burn will actually take place in the next couple weeks if weather cooperates.
So marshmallows and hot dogs?
Bring the marshmallows and the hot dogs.
Saratoga would provide that.
I would.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chair, before we move on,
Yes.
those last two items, you said carpet removal will be in maintenance mode within a couple of years. And we said for about a year now that we're within 2 or 3 years of maintenance mode on Phragmites in a couple of years. That's astounding. Those two major issues, if you'd have thought back 10 years ago, I mean, progress is slow and we inch along and we have lots of meetings, but those are two of those challenging issues, difficult issues when the commission began to try to address. We're within sight of maintenance mode. That's incredible.
I think that's where the master plan came in real handy, because it's been followed real well.
Except for the nature center.
Love you, right? Okay. Okay.
Still be friends
I
at the
think
end of
that's
the day.
great. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Here we have a legislative dinner. And I don't know how you guys felt about that, but, well, let's take the opinion, and I'll tell you what mine is, because it counts last anyway.
Give you money. First off, I want to thank Rebecca for her efforts in putting it on. It's always a nice event. I just wish we would have been able to get more legislation this year. It seemed like it was down.
We competed with the water, there was a water, air quality, something like that meeting that was called after we had scheduled our event.
You're competing with my 3 kids still have to home or in a play that night. So, sorry.
No, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
there were a lot of conflicts, and that's the only downside to it.
You know,
That's all.
I hate to miss it. It's
Conflicts
always
are
a
good.
great event.
You're always there.
I felt bad about missing it.
We missed you, we had the chair, I can eat your food.
Well, you're welcome.
But I thought it was good. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah, I think the venue is just totally the best.
Agreed.
Because when you get a view of the lake like that, and as the frag mining's disappeared and stuff like that, you know, it's a totally awesome place. I'm looking forward to doing it again out there if we can.
I did have one other problem, and that is, as I was driving out there, I was enjoying the drive so much, and just looking around that, I went about 3 miles.
When you see the sign that says Alberta, you knew you'd gone too far, right? All right, so is it worth doing? Is it worth doing? For what we pay for it or whatever, is it worth doing?
I would say yes, but I also think that every other year model would get higher attendance at each.
Okay.
if-
Senator Henderson's question.
You know, I think it's really important to have my colleagues, especially, Utah County legislators, see the importance of the work that the commission does and understand that importance. And even if they can't make it, even just knowing that they're invited and knowing, if it's an every other year thing or if they can only make it every now and then, I think it is valuable to at least, maybe we don't need to have an extravagant dinner, but to at least get together and talk about the work that the commission has done and the progress that's been made and the things that, the master plan, the things that are still on the horizon. I think it's really, really good and very important, I think, to keep legislators involved.
Do you think that the annual or every other year, in your opinion, for where you sit with your constituents, what do you think?
Well, I think an update every year is probably a good thing. It maybe doesn't need to be a fancy dinner. So maybe it can be something a little bit more informal. But, as far as spending money and everything, it's nice to come and have a dinner. But what's even more important is the information that's passed along. So,
Question.
From your experience, with other people that do this and get legislators there, would we be more successful going to Salt Lake?
not if you're looking for Utah County legislators, which is what I thought we were trying to get the Utah County legislators.
Utah County and then
Would we
involved natural
be-
resources.
That is a little ways out there. Would we be more successful in a more central location?
Maybe. I mean, maybe on the east side of the lake might be a little bit
It's so
easier for
beautiful
people.
out there, but
It is really beautiful out there. It really is. And maybe having it, in different municipalities might be a good thing.
I think part of the point is that you're associated with the lake and you have a facility that hosts it there. What
That's
would we
true.
have elsewhere?
I don't know that the location is as big a deal. We get invited to a lot of things as legislators. I mean, we could be every day, every morning, every night going to stuff if we went to everything. And so it's really hard to make it to everything. But I think doing something on an annual basis so that everybody knows that it's a kind of a consistent thing and we're going to get a yearly update before the legislative session starts, I think that's beneficial. It doesn't need to be an expensive dinner. I mean, those are beautiful. They do a great job with catering up there, but I know it's pricey.
Question, if I may, what about the timing? Is there a different time, a better time?
A good thing to do is to look at the major legislative conferences, because if you schedule when, we're all in Washington or somewhere for NCSL, then
One of the things I think we would intend to do is to do it in conjunction with an interim session. Is that-
Yeah, so this one was the night before interim, knowing that
Which
some of the
is-
southern,
Yeah, and that can be problematic because we usually have
Other
There's
invites?
like Clean Air Caucus, and I mean, there's a lot of things that people go to the night before. So that might be even more problematic, doing it the night before.
And the day of, the evening after, you never know when you're gonna end, is that correct?
It's actually, it's not bad, unless we're having a special session. The way we've configured things now, we've moved all our meetings earlier so that the Senate can do our advice and consent at the end of the day. So we're usually done around 5, the Senate is.
So would it be better to move it to that day maybe? Or is everybody?
I would say no. I would say
Everybody's
no.
ready to go,
Everybody's
right?
exhausted at the end of that day. It's early in the day. But I would maybe not do an interim week. Interim weeks are just tough. We have tons of meetings, interim weeks, and it's hard for people to.
Particularly where it's primarily those that live in the close into the area.
Yeah.
Whether it's more for those that would be traveling.
Yeah. I would avoid the third week of the month.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll put some dates on it. Okay.
For this year, I think we did it a little bit differently in that we partnered with our friends in the other valley. And I'm wondering if that was helpful or not. I mean, it sounds good, but I think when we're targeting and trying to work with our county legislators, I don't know if it's helpful or not. So.
Okay.
I think it all depends on what our goal is, because I think that we could, there are some years where I think that partnering is a good thing. When we're going after a major appropriation, this last year, in fact, talking about that $1 million appropriation, that would have been very helpful and very beneficial because we were on the same page. There are going to be years where the Georgia Commission and the Utah Commission are not on the same page. And those are the years that I don't think it would be advantageous to do it together. But for respect of the legislature's time, if they're being invited to a Jordan River and a Utah Lake, and we're giving them the same information, how many years is it going to take them to be able to
Well, I kind of think too that the Utah County legislator, if they know that if their people, if Utah County, they want to, become familiar with those issues, if it's combined and they think, well, there's going to be a lot of people there, this is a good opportunity for me to stay home with my family for an evening because their time, the demand on the time is so heavy for a legislator. And so I think if we can be cognizant of that and really focus it, I probably would be in favor of just targeting and working with our Utah County legislators, with the Utah Lake Commission, rather than trying to do, something joint. Because I think, like you say, sometimes we'll be working on the same things. Other times, and I would say most times, we're going to be competitors for dollars.
I think you're right, Chris. I think that sense of ownership with the lake here and our constituents and our towns and our cities that we represent, I think that helps the legislators in Utah County feel a bit more obligation to be.
A little bit of ownership.
Yeah.
Ownership issue.
Agreed.
Okay, we got that down, that's good.
Thank you for the feedback.
Good. Okay, tell you what, we're just going to review next year's meeting schedule. We're going to start off March 24th, 2016. And then our next meeting after that will be June 23rd, 2016. If additional meetings are needed, then we will assemble and we'll let you know of a new meeting. And if there's field trips, we'll get that out to you. And if there's anything that you guys want to discuss, then Eric is willing to listen to it. If we need to hold special meetings, that's not an issue. It's just no sense holding a meeting if we don't need to hold it. So, Eric, I appreciate him for streamlining and making the time more available, but I would say, I would expect, and I think we all expect that if we have fewer meetings, then we ought to try to arrange our schedules to be to those meetings, just because we're eliminating some. It will be good information. Okay, let's talk about the coastal cleanup, and that'll be coming up. Luke, you got that one.
Sure, let's give a brief update about how our coastal cleanup day went on September 19th. We had about 30 volunteers at 4 different locations around the lake, Inlet Park, Vineyard Beach, the State Park, and Sandy Beach. So we had 30 volunteers for about, some of them all 3 hours, some of them were only able to stay about an hour. We picked up 70 bags of trash, as well as a bunch of other big items like tires and motorcycle frames, and golf clubs, and things like that. So we did 3 cleanups during 2015, and it's been really helpful to help us identify where the best spots are around the lake, like where the trash ban accumulates. And we've had the idea for a number of years now to kind of establish an adopting shoreline program where organizations will sign up to adopt a spot, like a beach, and then maintain it throughout the year. So this next year, we're hoping to kind of go away from the organized cleanup efforts and then just get organizations to pick a spot and maintain it for the whole year. So these events have been helpful because they've helped us identify those spots, and we're looking forward to expanding on that and keeping the shorelines clean. So.
Okay.
And next on the list too, so I've been able to coordinate a meeting on December 7th with several of the PIOs from the municipalities and other organizations on the board. So we're hoping to do two things at that meeting. First of all, we want to make sure they are informed of all projects that are going on at the lake, the potential projects and the ongoing projects. We also hope to get their expertise to kind of help us improve our strategy or come up with new ideas for how we can communicate all these things to the public. So hopefully during these winter months we can develop some strategies that we can implement next spring when the weather gets warm and use and the lake starts to increase. So thanks to those of you who responded to my email a couple weeks ago and gave me their information. We're looking forward to that meeting.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any comments from the general public or the board that they would like to put out at this time right now?
I'll just offer a thank you to the board. Sarah Thomas is looking forward to completing the next section of our marina project, and the grant that was allocated today will make a significant dent in that. So we invite you all out to come if you're interested to see construction or completion.
Maybe we could locate the nature center.
I'm looking forward to the barbecue.
Yes. Yes.
Big barbecue. And while we're out at that,
That's the pragmatic barbecue, right?
yeah. This is Rebecca's last time she'll be in a meeting with us. She's moving back east, and so we're going to miss you.
Thank you. My goodness.
Appreciate you being on here on the board, and it's been fun having you around. We hope that your replacement is good.
I'm headed up to Ohio to work in a nature center.
We didn't learn nothing then, did we? Okay. All right. Is there anybody else that will not be on with us next year in one way or another? You're done?
I'm done. There will be a replacement.
Are you leaving?
Well, we appreciate you too, sir. It's, you know, these kind of commissions and boards that we belong to, sometimes, sometimes you feel like you accomplished, sometimes you feel like you did, but in the future, it's going to make a real difference. Dean, are you going to be with us?
No, I'm through.
You're leaving too. Going to miss you too, brother.
Thank you.
But my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have served and that are not coming back, and all those who have served and will continue to serve. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a great Thanksgiving and a wonderful Christmas holiday, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next year and someplace in between. If you haven't got my Christmas present yet, you should just wear large and extra large, extra large and all extra large. Look good in all colors and all sizes. So thank you, guys. See you later. Yes.
Be sure to let us know who your replacement representative is so we can get those invites out and so forth to them.
As soon as our mayor
Sounds that. Awesome. There's refreshments back there.
Did you need a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn. Okay, all in favor?
There's some refreshments in the back
You
corner.
don't want to adjourn to stay there. Yeah, there's drinks in the back, everybody load up.
And